Hi there. I'm going to say it is day 24 since our mom was taken in the dark of night from her bed.
For years, Savannah Guthrie has been the face of morning television, the anchor who sits in that famous Today Show chair and delivers the news with grace, warmth, and an almost supernatural calm. But behind that smile, there was a storm that most people never saw coming. There were moments, private, painful, desperate moments when Savannah wasn't sure she could keep going, when the weight of it all became almost too heavy to carry, when the woman the whole country leaned on for comfort was quietly falling apart in ways she never showed on camera. There was the health crisis that blindsided her, the career crossroads that nearly broke her spirit, the personal losses that cut so deep they never fully healed, and one revelation, one truth she carried alone for far too long, that when it finally came out, left even her closest colleagues stunned. This isn't just a story about a television anchor. This is a story about survival, about faith tested to its absolute limit, about what it truly costs to be strong for the world when the world has no idea what you're going through. You think you know Savannah Guthrie. You don't, not yet. Stay with us, because what we're about to reveal changes everything you thought you understood about one of America's most beloved women. Every morning, somewhere around 7 a.m. Eastern Time, tens of millions of Americans do something almost ritualistic. They turn on the Today Show. They pour their coffee. They sit down, and without even thinking about it, they look for her. Savannah Guthrie, warm, steady, real, in a media landscape full of polished performances and carefully managed personas. Savannah has always felt different. She doesn't just read the news, she connects with it. She doesn't just interview people, she makes them feel safe enough to tell the truth. There's something in the way she leans forward, tilts her head, looks a person directly in the eye. It's rare, it's powerful, and it's 100% authentic. Savannah and Guthrie has been the co-anchor of the Today Show since 2012. She's sat across from presidents, world leaders, Hollywood legends, and everyday people whose stories broke the nation's heart. She's covered elections, disasters, cultural earthquakes, and some of the most defining moments of the 21st century, all with that trademark blend of sharp intelligence and genuine human warmth. She's a licensed attorney, a mother, a wife, a woman of deep faith, and one of the most respected journalists in American broadcast history. But here's what people don't talk about enough. The path Savannah walked to get to that chair was not smooth. It was not easy. It was not the clean, cinematic success story that a morning television smile might suggest. There were years of grinding uncertainty. There were professional setbacks that would have crushed a lesser person. There were health scares that forced her to confront her own mortality in ways no one expects at the height of their career. And there were personal truths, quiet, heavy, defining truths that Savannah carried with a dignity most of us could never fully understand. She is so much more than what you see on screen. And today, we're going to show you who she really is. Savannah Guthrie was born on December 27, 1971, in Melbourne, Australia, a fact that surprises a lot of people, given how deeply American she seems in every possible way. She was the daughter of Charles Guthrie, a businessman, and Nancy Guthrie. The family moved back to the United States when Savannah was still very young, eventually settling in Tucson, Arizona. It wasn't a glamorous upbringing. It was a modest, grounded, Midwestern values kind of life, the kind that teaches you to work for what you want and never assume anything will be handed to you. But what came next would leave a mark on Savannah that she has never fully been able to shake. When Savannah was just a teenager, her father passed away. He died in a car accident, suddenly, without warning, without time for goodbyes or last words or any of the things you wish with every fiber of your being you could say. And just like that, the world Savannah knew cracked open. Losing a parent at that age does something to a person. It either breaks you permanently or it builds something inside you that becomes unbreakable. For Savannah, it did the latter, but not without cost. It made her acutely aware of how fragile life is, how quickly the people you love can be taken away, how much every single day actually matters, because not everyone gets another one. She threw herself into school, into achievement, into becoming someone who could stand on her own defeat no matter what the world threw at her. She studied communications at the University of Arizona, graduating with honors. Then she did something that genuinely surprised people. Instead of rushing straight into television, she went to law school, Georgetown University Law Center, one of the most prestigious programs in the entire country. That she graduated with a law degree. She passed the bar. She became a practicing attorney. But even then, something deep inside her was pulling her somewhere else. The camera, the story, the human connection. Savannah Guthrie was always meant to be a journalist, and she was about to spend the rest of her life proving it. The early years in television weren't glamorous. Not even close. Savannah paid her dues the way all serious journalists do, grinding through local news, working brutal hours, covering stories that nobody else wanted to cover, building her craft one broadcast at a time with no guarantees and no safety net. She worked at stations in Tucson and then Washington, D.C., slowly but steadily building a reputation as someone who was not just a pretty face reading from a teleprompter. She was a real reporter, a legal mind, someone who asked harder questions and dug deeper than most people dared. Her legal background set her completely apart when MSNBC came calling, offering her a platform to cover legal news and political stories. Savannah stepped into the national spotlight for the very first time, and she was good. Undeniably, compellingly, unmistakably good. She covered the White House. She became NBC's chief legal correspondent. She reported from the press briefing room and held her own against the most powerful political figures in the country, without flinching, without pandering, without ever losing the human warmth that made people genuinely want to listen to her. And then came the moment that changed everything. In 2011, Savannah was named co-host of the Today Show's third hour. It was a trial run, a test under bright lights, and she passed with flying colors. By 2012, she was sitting in the main anchor chair, officially stepping in as permanent co-host alongside Matt Lauer, in front of the biggest morning television audience in America. She had made it. She had actually made it. But even at the height of that triumph, there were things waiting in the shadows, things she couldn't have predicted, things that would test every single bit of strength she had spent a lifetime building. No one talks about the pressure of that chair enough. The Today Show had been America's most watched morning program for more than a decade. The expectations were enormous. The scrutiny was absolutely relentless. Every rating dip, every awkward interview, every single moment that didn't land perfectly, it was analyzed, criticized, and dissected publicly, in real time, by an audience of millions. Savannah felt it. All of it. And then, in 2017, everything at the Today Show imploded. Matt Lauer, her co-anchor, her on-air partner, the man she sat beside every single morning for years, was fired following multiple serious allegations of sexual misconduct. It was one of the most explosive scandals in the entire history of broadcast television. And Savannah had to break the news herself, on live television, in front of millions of viewers, about someone she had worked alongside, laughed with, and trusted as a professional partner for years. The moment was raw, painful, visibly, undeniably emotional. She read a prepared statement with hands that weren't quite steady and a voice that cracked just enough to remind the whole country that the people who deliver the news are human beings too. People who feel shock, confusion, and heartbreak just like everyone else. She later called it one of the hardest things she had ever done in her professional life. But what people don't fully appreciate is what that period cost her privately. The confusion of processing a betrayal in real time. The impossible pressure of holding an entire television institution together, while quietly carrying her own pain. The weight of being the steady one when there was nothing steady left to hold on to. She kept showing up, every single morning. She kept smiling. She kept connecting, because that is what Savannah Guthrie does. But the hardest chapter was still ahead. In 2014, Savannah married Michael Feldman, a political consultant. After years of quietly navigating the particular loneliness that comes with being completely consumed by an all-demanding career, she had always wanted a family. But time felt like it was quietly, relentlessly working against her. Then, at 42, she gave birth to her daughter Vale, and 2 years later, her son Charles arrived. Becoming a mother in her 40s changed Savannah in ways she has spoken about with rare and beautiful vulnerability. It softened something in her. It clarified her priorities in ways that years of career success and professional achievement never could. She once said that holding her daughter for the very first time made her understand, truly understand, for the first time in her life, what actually mattered. Her faith also deepened profoundly during this period. Savannah is openly Christian, not in a performative, public-facing way, but in the quiet, private, deeply personal way that sustains a person through the impossible. The kind of faith that doesn't ask for applause. The kind that simply holds you together when everything else falls apart. And she would need that faith more than she ever imagined. Because in 2016, something happened that no one, not her doctors, not her family, not her audience of millions, could have possibly been prepared for. During a recreational hockey game, Savannah Guthrie was accidentally struck directly in the eye by a hockey stick. The injury was severe, deeply, frighteningly severe. It caused a torn retina, and the damage was so significant, so immediate, that Savannah faced the very real and terrifying possibility of losing vision in that eye permanently. For a television anchor, someone whose entire career is built on presence, on being seen, on showing up visually for an audience every single morning, this was terrifying on every professional level imaginable. But for Savannah, as a mother, as a person, as a woman who had already survived the sudden loss of her father and built everything she had from the ground up, it was something even deeper than a career crisis. It was an existential confrontation with everything she had worked for and everyone who depended on her. She underwent multiple surgeries. She fought with everything she had to save her vision. She sat in the darkness, literally and figuratively, and asked herself the questions that only real fear can force you to ask. And still, she showed up for work. Still, she sat in that chair, with diminished vision in one eye, with genuine ongoing fear, with pain she never once broadcast to the world. She kept going, morning after morning, smile after smile. This is the chapter of Savannah's story that most people completely skip over. The part where she was quietly facing one of the most frightening experiences of her life while continuing to show up every single morning like nothing had changed. But everything had changed. She began reflecting differently on life, on what the relentless pursuit of a career had cost her physically, on what it meant to be strong for everyone else while privately struggling in ways she couldn't share, on the years of pushing through when pushing through simply wasn't sustainable. She began speaking about balance in ways she never had before, about the limits of ambition, about the things she had sacrificed along the way that she wished, with everything in her, she had protected more carefully. Time, she started saying quietly, is the one thing you cannot get back. So what is the hidden truth that we teased at the very beginning of this story? It's not one single shocking secret dropped into a headline. It's something harder than that, something more human than that. The hidden truth about Savannah Guthrie is this: the woman the entire country leans on for strength has spent much of her career quietly carrying the weight of grief, fear, physical pain, professional trauma, and personal doubt, and she never let it show. Not because she was performing invincibility, not because she was pretending, but because she genuinely, deeply believed that showing up mattered more than breaking down. The loss of her father at a young age, the loneliness of a career that consumed everything, the very public implosion of her professional world when Matt Lauer was fired, and she had to hold the entire show together with her bare hands. The terrifying eye injury that threatened her sight and forced her to confront the fragility of absolutely everything she had built. And then, perhaps most quietly and most profoundly of all, the ongoing, lifelong struggle to reconcile the person she is on camera with the person she is at home. The mother who misses bedtimes, the woman of faith who questions everything in the dark, the journalist who cares so deeply about truth in a world that increasingly punishes people for telling it. Savannah Guthrie has never claimed to be perfect, but she has always claimed to be present, and that unbreakable, daily commitment to showing up fully honestly, And humanly is the truth that defines her more than any headline, any award, or any television rating ever could. She didn't build her career on glamour. She built it on something far rarer and infinitely harder to sustain. She built it on realness. There's a version of Savannah Guthrie's story that looks like a perfectly curated highlight reel. A law degree from Georgetown, chief White House correspondent for NBC, co-anchor of the #1 morning show in America, a loving marriage, 2 beautiful children, a career that spans decades and shows absolutely no signs of slowing down. But that's not the story that matters most. What matters most is everything that happened between the highlights. The morning she didn't feel like smiling but smiled anyway, because millions of people were watching and they needed her too. The evenings she cried in private after spending the entire day holding it together in public. The hospital rooms, the surgeries, the quiet grief she has carried since losing her father. A grief that doesn't have an expiration date, no matter how successful you become. Savannah Guthrie is living proof that strength is not the absence of pain. Strength is showing up with the pain, letting it make you softer, wiser, more human, not harder, colder, and more defended against the world. In an industry obsessed with polish and performance and the carefully constructed appearance of having it all together, she chose something far braver: authenticity, real emotion, honest, unscripted human connection. And that is exactly why millions of people turn on their television every single morning and feel, just for a moment, like everything is going to be okay. Because of her. Not the anchor, not the attorney, not the brand, the woman, the survivor, the human being who decided, over and over again, through loss and fear and pain and doubt, that showing up was enough, that she was enough. And maybe, just maybe, that's the reminder all of us desperately need today. You are allowed to struggle. You are allowed to carry things that feel impossibly heavy. You are allowed to feel the full weight of your own story without apologizing for it. And still show up. Still smile. Still be here. Because the world needs people like that. People who choose presence over perfection. People who lead not with highlights, but with heart. People like Savannah Guthrie.